He was just scanning ID badges until the CTO noticed him saying things a developer shouldn't understand. Winter in Chicago didn't just settle outside. It seeped into every corner, even inside the sealed glass headquarters of Vireotech, a rising star in the tech world. By day, the building thrived. Keyboards clicked like percussion. Stand-up meetings never stayed standing. Engineers debated logic problems with more fire than most politicians. Energy hummed like electricity. But by night, the hum faded. Lights dimmed. Servers blinked like ghosts. And the only people still walking the halls were the ones no one ever noticed. Lucas Peña was one of them. He was 38, Colombian American, deep brown skin, cropped curls, the kind of voice that made you listen because he rarely used it. To most people at Vireotech, he was just the night guy, the man behind the security desk. The one who returned your lost badge, nodded politely when you passed, and didn't interrupt your Slack-fueled late-night sprints. Every night, Lucas sat in a small room lined with screens over 20 security feeds in rotation. He logged entries, flagged anomalies, and wrote up reports like fourth floor lights left on at 1:07 a.m. or emergency exit pinged at 1:32. Routine, quiet. But when there was nothing urgent, Lucas studied. What no one knew was that the notebook beside his terminal didn't hold shift schedules or security protocols. It held code. Every page was lined with Python functions, SQL queries, diagrams of RESTful APIs, and database schemas he'd picked up by watching dev teams through the camera feeds. Not spying, observing, learning. He didn't memorize code. He deciphered it. No one noticed him, until the server did. On breaks, he watched YouTube tutorials, pausing after every line, searching terms he'd overheard in hallway conversations or read on-screen reflections. Async calls, try, catch blocks, token authorization. At 3 a.m., while the city slept, Lucas debugged theoretical code he could never deploy. He never asked questions, not because he didn't want to, but because he already knew what the answers would be. Sorry, it's complicated. This probably isn't your thing. Or worse, the sideways glance that said, there's nothing here for you to understand. He didn't have a CS degree. He didn't go to boot camp. What he did have was a quiet kind of discipline, carved from years of being overlooked and more hours of undivided focus than any developer on the 18th floor. Lucas wasn't trying to be seen. But the servers had other plans. Friday night, 2:08 a.m. Lucas was watching the camera feed from the second floor when he saw the lights in the server room flicker on abrupt, out of sync with the night's rhythm. Then came the call over the internal radio. Urgent. Clipped. A code red 7. System failure. Within minutes, a swarm of night shift engineers rushed into the ops room on the first floor. Lucas switched his screen to full surveillance mode, not out of suspicion, but instinct. Something about the way the engineers moved didn't match the usual drill. Fingers flew across keyboards, frowns deepened, voices escalated. Try restarting the proxy again. DNS is still timing out. We're still getting 502S since 203. No root cause yet. Lucas leaned closer to camera 4. The dev team had left one of the consoles up on the projector. He zoomed in. Post user. Data 502 bad gateway. He stared at that line for a moment. Something clicked. He stood, left the security booth, walked down the quiet hallway past the vending machines, past the elevator, straight toward the ops center. No one had called him. No one had invited him. He opened the door. Didn't knock. Heads turned. At the center of the room stood Marissa Chatterjee, Vireotech's CTO, mid-40s, sharp-eyed, and known for not entertaining nonsense. She was flanked by engineers scrambling through diagnostics. Lucas spoke calmly, his voice cutting through the static. I think the problem's in your API. The post call doesn't check the response header. Silence. One of the younger engineers looked up, eyebrows raised in disbelief. Excuse me? Do you code? Lucas didn't answer. He stepped forward, walked to the console. His badge read security. His hands didn't shake. He scrolled down the open log file. Paused at line 213. This one. It expects a 200, but there's no handler if it returns a 204. That's where your failure loop starts. Marisa's tone was ice. Where did you hear that term? REST response codes? Lucas met her gaze, not defensive, not afraid. I've been watching your team deploy builds for months. When something failed, I wrote it down. When something worked, I tried to understand why. The room felt heavier. One of the engineers tried his suggestion. Keystrokes. A pause. Console output. Status. 200. OK. The error vanished. Servers stabilized. A room full of trained professionals stood frozen, staring at the security guard who had just walked in and casually debugged what none of them could. Marisa didn't speak. She simply stared at Lucas like he had stepped out of a different universe. Lucas took a small step back. I'll go back to my post now. And just like that, he turned around and walked out, leaving behind a room so quiet it could have been mistaken for an empty server bay. Saturday morning. The sky over Chicago was a dull gray, snow clinging to the window ledge of the 12th floor meeting room at Viriotech. Lucas sat quietly, dressed in his plain black security uniform, hands on his knees, posture straight, eyes steady. Across from him sat Marisa Chatterjee, the company's CTO. Usually, she commanded rooms filled with veteran engineers and product leads, but today, it was just the two of them. Marisa folded her arms, eyes fixed on Lucas. I'm going to be direct, she said. How did you know about our API system? Lucas tilted his head slightly. I don't know all of it, but I guessed where the problem might be. And what was that guess based on? I've been watching logs through the security cameras every night, writing things down. When something breaks, I look up the keywords, watch tutorials, compare syntax. One time I saw one of your devs forget an if-else check, and the system had to roll back the next morning. I didn't understand it then, so I learned until I did. Marisa furrowed her brow. Where did you learn? Lucas gave a small smile. Mostly free code camp, a little Udemy, some GitHub repos from open source projects, and late-night developer chats I overheard through the cameras on the 4th floor. She leaned forward. You never studied computer science? I did. For a while. Got to my 2nd year. What happened? Lucas clenched his hands gently. His voice dropped. My mom had a stroke. Left side paralyzed. No one else to take care of her. My dad left when I was 10. So, I dropped out. Started working night security full-time so I could be home with her during the day. Marisa stayed quiet. No pen, no judgment. Lucas looked out the glass pane, then back. I used to think, if someone ever asked, I wanted to have something to say. I didn't want to face opportunity and be unprepared. He paused. I've seen too many doors open, just never mine. So I figured, if I ever got close, I better be ready to walk through. It wasn't just an explanation. It was a quiet confession. Marisa leaned back in her chair, still watching him. Did you ever think about doing something else? Lucas chuckled softly. Every night. But no one ever asked what I wanted to do. All I ever got was, sit here, log times, watch cameras. Marisa exhaled slowly. Her gaze had shifted. She was no longer a manager conducting an interview. She was someone who'd just realized what she'd missed. Flashback. Chicago, 13 years ago. Lucas was 25. He lived in a cramped apartment on the city's west side. One sagging mattress, a broken dining chair propped up by old library books, and a frail woman lying in bed, his mother paralyzed on one side. Each morning, Lucas brewed tea, fed her soft porridge, wiped her face, and helped her stretch the arm she could no longer feel. Every night, he walked 20 minutes to a corporate office building where he worked the graveyard shift as a guard. No desk, no computer. Just a folding chair, an old radio, and a cracked phone screen he used to watch SQL tutorials. After checking locks and logging rounds, he'd sit in the dark, flip his phone to battery saver mode, and replay the same video. SQL basics, select, from, where. He jotted notes on oil-stained scratch paper using a pen borrowed from the day shift, line by line, word by word. One time, the building's internet failed. Lucas noticed the router blinking orange. He reset it, then typed ipconfig into the command line, something he'd learned from a random forum. The network came back. He called the IT team to report it. They grunted a thank you and hung up. No one asked his name. Lucas had been misnamed more times than he could count. Luis, Leon, even Juan, despite wearing a name tag that clearly read Lucas Peña. Once, he heard an engineer laugh behind his back when he saw Lucas reading an English programming book. Security guards learning code now? Watch out, Silicon Valley. Lucas didn't respond. He just took notes like always. Every error message he saw through a screen, every conversation he overheard through the intercom, became a new line in his notebook. No one knew he downloaded an entire open-source task manager just to dissect its flow. No one knew he simulated bugs on an old laptop while his coworkers napped in the break room. No one asked, so he never said. Marisa closed her notebook gently. "Lucas," she said, "if there were an official Roleno College degree required, no certifications needed but built for someone with patience, system intuition, and problem-solving grit, would you be interested?" Lucas looked up. His expression softened. "You're asking me if I want to walk through the door I've been standing in front of for 13 years? Marisa smiled, just barely. "I'm asking if you're ready to walk in and stay." Monday morning, 9:03 a.m. As employees filed into Veriotech's downtown headquarters, a subtle but unmistakable update appeared in the company intranet. New interim role: Lucas Peña, Technical Risk Analyst. Pilot placement. Lucas will support the risk and infrastructure team in cross-department monitoring. Reporting to CTO Marisa Chatterjee. There was no team meeting, no welcome cupcakes, no big announcement, just one neatly worded system update, quiet, efficient, but enough to jolt the entire engineering floor. At DevZone, 7th floor, swivel chairs froze mid-spin. "Wait," said Ryan, a back-end dev staring at his screen. "Lucas Peña? The night guy?" "You mean the security guy with the janitor badge?" another asked. No one answered out loud, but everyone understood. That same afternoon, Slack channel number eng-random lit up like a server error. First came the memes. One had Lucas's face photoshopped onto Mission Impossible with the caption, "When the security guard hacks your API before breakfast." Then came the snark. "So, do I need to man the front desk to join the risk team now?" Marisa saw it. She wasn't new to tech. She knew exactly what happened when someone challenged the unspoken hierarchy, especially someone who hadn't climbed the right ladder. She called Lucas up to her office. He sat on the leather chair across from her, still in his plain button-down. No blazer, no company laptop. "You okay?" Marisa asked directly. Lucas took a moment, glancing out the window before answering. "I'm fine, just more eyes than usual." Marisa nodded. "Some people think you're being favored." "I understand. From where they're standing, that's a fair guess." Lucas didn't complain, but she noticed how his shoulders tensed whenever he walked past the dev floor, the quick glances, the unnatural nods. In the break room, Ben from Infrastructure had already said it loud enough for others to hear. "So what now? We hiring through YouTube?" Lucas heard it. But he didn't respond, because for years he'd lived behind closed doors figuring no one cared what he had to say. What surprised him now was that even when you finally walked through one, some people still tried to close it behind you. Week 2. Lucas wasn't assigned his first project because anyone trusted him. He was given a nearly finished build of Veriotech's new SaaS product real-time data analytics for small to mid-sized businesses because QA was understaffed that week. That was it. Overflow work. But Lucas didn't care. In 2 nights, he read through the entire technical doc, flagged every endpoint that lacked error code handling, and bookmarked API calls with incomplete response protocols. By the 3rd night, he sent an email to QA. "I believe the post metrics batch endpoint doesn't reject malformed time formats. If the timestamp is corrupted, the queue breaks but doesn't alert. Here's a patch suggestion. The QA team replied with a single emoji. By morning, the issue was logged into the main bug tracker. Marisa began to notice. She asked Lucas to try something he'd once scribbled in his old notebook, a code risk map. Not an elaborate tool, just a visual system to show where software vulnerabilities lived. No jargon, no code dumps. Just color-coded markers, plain language notes, and boxes even non-tech teams could understand. Lucas stayed late, alone in an empty floor. At 10 p.m., he opened Figma and built it from scratch. Red, unverified endpoints. Yellow, timeout behaviors with no fallback. Gray, monitoring not installed. After 3 days, he presented the map. No slides, no tech theater, just a visual. And this time, everyone understood. Marisa forwarded it to 2 major clients zone in Boston, one in Osaka, both of whom had been on the verge of pulling out, citing lack of transparency. They stayed. One afternoon, during a Zoom with Japanese stakeholders, Lucas joined the call early. When the clients logged in, he bowed slightly and said, "Konnichiwa. O shigai itadaki arigatou gozaimasu." "Konnichiwa. Thank you for your time." A full second of silence. Then 3 warm smiles. Later that day, a short email arrived. "This is the first time someone at your company greeted us in Japanese. We noticed, and we appreciated it deeply." From then on, Lucas began hosting informal weekend sessions for junior devs. No slides, no buzzwords, just a whiteboard, dry erase markers, and analogies. REST API? It's like submitting a soda order to a vending machine. If the machine doesn't reply, "Okay," you know something's broken. People understood. The following week, someone posted to number junior help. "Can anyone explain this API error? Or should we call Lucas?" The shift wasn't loud, but it was clear. When Lucas walked past the dev floor now, people nodded first. Someone even called him analyst. And one day, Benthe, same engineer who'd scoffed at him weeks earlier, knocked on the frame of Lucas's temporary office. "Hey," he said, "I saw your risk map. It's actually useful. Mind if I borrow the layout for a client deck?" Lucas smiled and pulled the PDF from the pinboard without saying a word. The conference room on the 10th floor was colder than usual, part air conditioning, part tension. Lucas stood at one end of the table, a digital version of his code risk map glowing on the central screen. Across from him sat 2 figures who had yet to crack a smile. Brian from legal and Cynthia from finance. Marisa was also there, seated but silent for now. Brian leaned back, arms crossed, blazer crisp and voice sharper. "So let me get this straight. You're suggesting we change the error handling protocols for the core product based on notes you wrote from a security booth?" Lucas didn't flinch. "I'm suggesting we change them because I've traced 3 near failures to the same unchecked exceptions. I just happened to notice them first." Cynthia narrowed her eyes, flipping through a printout of his report. "You don't have formal credentials, no CS degree, no cybersecurity certification. If this goes south, it's on the company." Lucas nodded once. Calm. "If this goes south, it's on me. But if we ignore it, and it goes south anyway, that's on all of us." The room went still. Marisa finally spoke, her tone even. "Cynthia, you were there when Osaka almost pulled out. Lucas's model kept them on board. He's not guessing. He's identifying patterns we've overlooked." Cynthia sighed, still skeptical. "I'm not doubting the result. I'm questioning the risk." Lucas stepped forward. "I get it. I do. I wouldn't trust me either, not on paper. But I didn't learn this to get a title. I learned it because when systems fail at 2 a.m., they don't ask who wrote the fix. They just break." He let that hang in the air. "Every time I flagged a vulnerability, I had to triple check it. Not because protocol told me to, but because reputation demanded it. That makes me cautious, not careless." Brian looked at Marisa, then at the screen. Finally, he exhaled. "If we proceed, we'll need full trace logs and a rollback strategy." Lucas nodded. "I've already built one. And I wrote the documentation in plain English. Even legal can read it. That earned a smirk from Cynthiatne, but real. Marisa looked around the room. Well then, she said, standing, unless anyone here wants to offer a better map, we follow the one that's kept us on track. Lucas gathered his things as the room emptied. As he exited, Brian clapped him lightly on the shoulder. Keep proving me wrong, he said, almost like a challenge. Lucas didn't smile until he was back in the elevator. That night, he added a new sticky note to his office wall. They'll believe your code before they believe in you. Write it anyway. 3 weeks after the server incident, an internal company-wide email landed quietly in every Vireotech inbox. Subject: Employee Impact Survey. Your voice matters. No one paid much attention at first, just another HR form. But by Friday, when the survey results were published, they rewrote how the company saw itself. Under the prompt, who had the most positive impact on your tech team this past month? The name at the top wasn't a senior engineer, wasn't a team lead, wasn't even someone most had ever worked directly with. It was Lucas Pena, former night security. People blinked. The man who used to scan badges in silence was now the person most junior engineers said made them want to learn more and be better. And the timing couldn't have been more perfect. Vireotech's executive leadership was gearing up for the Q4 stakeholder meeting where strategies are dissected, numbers picked apart, and every PowerPoint pixel matters. In that meeting, when CEO Eliza Monroe took the floor to speak on internal talent development and hidden potential, she didn't begin with AI innovation or budget forecasts. She pulled up a single slide. Lucas Pena, technical risk analyst, former night security. Below that was a candid photo. Lucas in a light gray shirt, speaking to a group of young developers, holding the very code risk map he once sketched in a notebook. The room froze. This, Eliza said, is why we never underestimate the ones who enter through the back door. That same afternoon, a new decision was made. One of the 3 brainstorming rooms on the 11th floor, where developers ran whiteboard marathons and product roadmaps were born, would be renamed the Pena Room, dedicated to those we almost missed. The next morning, HR called Lucas in. Waiting for him was a brushed steel nameplate resting in a black velvet box. Lucas Pena, technical risk analyst, former night security. That last line, it wasn't a disclaimer. It was a declaration proof that value isn't defined by titles, but by silent perseverance and unseen excellence. Friday afternoon. Wind curled through the glass halls of Vireotech, bringing in a December chill. Lucas walked down the first-floor corridor, a folder under one arm, notes from his latest API security session, and a feedback summary from a client call with Japan. As he passed the night security booth place he'd spent nearly 4 years, she slowed. Inside, a young guard sat at the desk, watching the monitors. A white-jacketed intern walked by and whispered, "Hey, that guy Pena, he really used to work here? He learned to code sitting in that exact chair?" The new guard didn't look up, just nodded. "Yeah, and he didn't just learn, he changed the door for all of us." Lucas didn't turn around, but he heard every word. And he kept walking. That night, in his small West Side apartment, Lucas sat at his wooden table. Same white walls, same old laptop, same notebook bursting with ink. He pulled out a pen, flipped to a new page, and wrote in bold letters, "Genius doesn't need permission, it just needs to be noticed." Then below it, he sketched the floor plan of Vireotech's first level, circling the security booth. The chair, the forgotten space. He paused, then opened his email. A new message waited from a junior dev. Subject: Thanks for making the API make sense. There were no elaborate compliments, just a few honest lines. Lucas didn't need more than that. 1 month later, at the year-end company celebration, as the crowd began to disperse and music faded into the background, Marisatha CTO walked over to Lucas with a half-smile and her hand outstretched. "One of the interns just asked me how they can join your team." Lucas chuckled. "They write good code?" "Not quite yet," she admitted. but they've got that look. Curious, willing to stay late to understand what others skip over. Lucas nodded slowly, a glimmer of memory in his eyes. He saw himself, years ago, perched in the security booth, eyes locked on a dev screen through grainy CCTV, scribbling down SQL commands on the back of a shift log. "Give them my notebook," he said. "Leave the last pages blank. Let them write the next part." Marisa smiled. Her eyes shimmered beneath the low lights of the near-empty ballroom. Back in his office no longer, a borrowed desk, Lucas pinned a fresh line on the whiteboard. Surrounded by code snippets, client maps, and hand-drawn flowcharts, it stood alone in bold marker. "You'd be surprised what happens when you ask the right person the right question. Sometimes, the genius is wearing a guard badge." He placed a small star next to it. Downstairs, the security lights still glowed. And somewhere, a new night guard stared up at the same hallway camera. A notebook open in front of them, ready to write the first line. "You'd be surprised what happens when you ask the right person the right question. Sometimes, the genius is wearing a guard badge." Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy. Wishing you a blessed day. May God watch over you always. Stay kind. Stay human.